everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel from Evelyn and Peter, and today I have a crochet cardigan pattern for you guys. So I'm not going to try it on, I'm just going to hold it up for you so you guys can see. Super cute. I really love how this one turned out. It's got like romantic summery vibes. I think it would be so cute paired over a sundress. It's too cold here. It's actually snowing right now. And it was chilly when I got photos of this, so I paired it over jeans, but as soon as it warms up, I really want to put on a cute sundress and put this over it and go take more photos. But pretty beginner friendly. If you want to see the photos that I did take, I have all those on my blog and on the cover of this YouTube video. I'm just wearing like a crazy shirt that would look weird underneath it if I tried it on right now. But yeah, so this is beginner friendly. It's worked from the bottom up in 3 separate panels, and it's very similar to the V-stitch. I did want to point out though that this is not the classic V-stitch. The V-stitch that you might be familiar with is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and you put it all in the same space. There's no chain 1 in this one, you guys, so it's just 2 double crochet. Just want to make sure that nobody gets mixed up about that. They do look like little V's. I'll hold it up. But there's just no chain 1 in between. So when you're working your 2 double crochet stitches, you're just gonna work it in the little center space of the V from the row below. So you are not working it into an actual stitch, you're just working it into the space of the 2 double crochet from the row below, and just repeat it all the way across, and that is it for the pattern. You're literally repeating the row 2 for the entirety of the pattern. So really easy. Let's see. We'll be doing some decreasing up here, which isn't too hard either. And then I also wanted to point out that it's really easy to customize the length of this. So I know some people wanted to make theirs a little bit shorter and do like a cropped version, which I think would be super cute. So all you have to do for that is when you're working the back panel, which is what you'll be doing first, just add or take away as many rows as you want, and then just take note of how many you added or how many you removed, and then you're gonna have to do that same amount on the front panels. And for the front panels, just make sure you do it right here, right before the decrease section. On both sides, just add or take away the rows. So super simple to customize. This pattern is free on my blog, so I always recommend to follow along with the written pattern as you're watching the video tutorial. I'm making the size small in this video, but if you make any other size, I have sizes extra small through 5X. If you make any of the other sizes, it's going to be different. Your stitch count's going to be different. Your row count will be different, so I always recommend to just follow the pattern and make sure that you know that it's going to be slightly different if you're not making the small. And even if you are making the small, I still recommend following along so you can stay on track with that. This is also going to be a kit with Lion Brand, so I'll link to that in the description. And the kit just comes with all of the yarn that you need to make your cardigan, and then they throw in the PDF digital download of the pattern for you. So basically it's like getting the pattern free and you're just paying for the yarn. A lot of times it's a really good deal because they frequently have sales, so make sure you check that out. And then the printable patterns will also be available in my Etsy and Ravelry shop, so I'll link to both of those. And then if you have any questions, if you really need my help on something and this video does not help you all the way with the pattern, then I always recommend to email over leaving comments for the questions. You can leave questions in the comments below. Maybe somebody else can help you out, but if you want to hear specifically back from me about something, I always recommend to email. A lot of times I miss the comments no matter how much I try to go through and see all of them and answer them. I'll just answer back quicker on email. So if you have anything specific that you need to know, email me. And if not, and you're not in a rush, then you can comment down below. And I hope you guys like this tutorial and enjoy it just as much as I loved making it. And I will catch you guys in the next tutorial. So to make your cardigan, you're going to need to use a fine weight yarn. I'm using Lion Brand's Oh Baby Organic Cotton. So this is a weight of 2 yarn, and then all the specific yardage is available on my blog post, so make sure you check that out. And then you're also going to need a 3.5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle to weave in your ends, a pair of scissors, and then also a couple of stitch markers. So we're going to get started by working the first panel. So first I'm going to show you the back panel, but I wanted to point out that all 3 panels are exactly the same when you start off. You're using the same type of stitch. The only difference is the length of the starting chain, and then your starting chain is also going to be different depending on the size. So make sure you're following along with the written pattern so you know how many to chain for the specific size that you're making. So you're going to begin with the slip knot, and then to start off, we're just going to do our beginning chain. And I'm making the size small, so I am going to chain 76 times. So to chain, all you do is yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook, and each time you do that, it counts as 1 chain. So go ahead and check and make sure you are doing the correct amount for your size. If you're doing a size small, then go ahead and make 76 chains, and then I will meet you back here to show you how to do row 1. Okay, so now I'm at the end of my chain. I have a total of 76 chains here, and we're going to start off row 1. So for that, we are going to be working in the 4th chain from the hook. So we have the loop on our hook, plus we have the first loop, second, third, and then in this 4th loop is where we're going to be working our first stitch. So yarn over and then rotate your work slightly so you can stick your hook in the back bump of the chain. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our first double crochet stitch. And then we are going to do the same thing in that very same stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I wanted to point out that there is no chains in between these double crochets. You might be familiar with a regular V-stitch, but we are not doing a regular V-stitch here. There's no chains in between the double crochets that you make. So once you do those 2 double crochet, you're going to skip the next chain and then work 2 double crochet into the chain following that. So you can see I've skipped over the next chain, and then I just work 2 double crochet stitches into the same chain. And then we're just going to be doing this all the way across the starting chain. So again, skip the very next chain, and then in the chain following that one is where you're going to work 2 double crochet stitches. So just make sure as you're working across that you don't accidentally skip more than 1 chain at a time. If you do, then your stitch count will be off at the end. You'll have to pull it out and redo it. So just keep an eye on that as you go. But for row 1, just work 2 double crochet stitches into the same chain, skip the next chain, and then work 2 double crochet stitches in the following, and just repeat that all the way across the row. And then I will meet you guys at the very end of the chain length to show you how to finish off the row. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end of the row here, and you can see I have 2 chains left. To finish off the row, you're just going to skip the chain and then work 1 double crochet into the final chain of the row. So this is how you will be ending off your rows, is by finishing that last stitch as just 1 double crochet into the end. So that is the end of row 1, and now we're going to turn and do row 2. So to start off the row, you're going to chain 3, and this chain 3 does count as a double crochet in this pattern. So when you come back, you're going to be working into the top of the chain 3. So just be aware of that and don't forget that. So once you turn and do your chain 3, you're going to be working the stitches in between the 2 legs of the double crochet from the row below. So you can see it creates the little V shape, and you're just going to insert your hook in between those 2 double crochet stitches, or in the center of the V, and then work 2 more double crochet into them. So you're not working it into a stitch, you're just working it into the little space that's in between the 2 double crochet from the row below into the center of the V. So you're just going to do this all the way across the row, work 2 double crochet stitches into the center of each V until you get to the end, and then I will show you how to finish off the row. Okay, so now we're at the end of the row. We have 2 stitches remaining because that turning chain counts as one of our stitches. So after you work your final 2 double crochet into the last V space, you're going to skip that next double crochet. So you're going to skip the next stitch and then just work your final double crochet into the top of the turning chain. So go ahead and insert your hook into the top of the chain, work your final double crochet, and that finishes off row 2. So for the size small, I have a total of 74 double crochet. Make sure when you're counting your stitches that you're counting the chain 3 and that final double crochet as well, because those count. And then that row 2 that we just made is what you're going to be repeating through the rest of the pattern. So it's super simple. We're going to just be doing this for the rest of the back panel. So to start off row 3, just chain 3. Again, that counts as your first double crochet, and then work 2 double crochet stitches into the center of the V from the row below, and then just do this all the way across. So 2 double crochet into the center of each V all the way until the end of the row, and then when you get to the end of the row, skip the next stitch and work 1 single double crochet into that final stitch, which again is the turning chain, so don't forget that. And then just repeat this for as many rows as it calls for your size. So I'm making the size small, and I'm going to do a total of 70 rows, but this will be different depending on the size that you're making. So make sure you check with the written pattern to see how many you need to make for your size. And then I will meet you back here to show you guys how to do the front panels. Okay, so at this point you should be all done with your back panel. Here is mine with a total of 70 rows. And all you need to do is tie off. Don't worry about leaving a long end on this one. We're going to be leaving long ends on the front panel for our sewing. So just yarn over your hook and pull through that final loop, and then you can go ahead and cut your yarn. Okay, so like I mentioned before, the front panels are exactly the same as the back panel, but just a different width. So I'm not going to show you guys how to start that off. If you need a reminder, you can go back and watch the back panel. But for the size small, I ended up chaining 40 and then working rows 1 and 2 and then repeating row 2 for the entirety of the pattern up until I get to row 48 before we start doing the decreasing of the neckline. So make sure you head to the written pattern and check how many chains you need to start off your front panels, because they are going to be different depending on your size. So go ahead and look at that, and then you can just repeat row 2 until you have reached the correct row that you need to be at for your size. And so for mine, that is row 48. So I have a total of 48 rows for my first front panel, which is the right panel when worn. And then I will meet you back here, and now I will show you guys how to do the decrease section in the neckline. So this is row 49 of the right front panel, the size small, and it's really, really easy to do the decreases on this. So go ahead and chain 3. That still counts as our first double crochet. And then instead of working 2 double crochet into the center of the V from the row below, you're only going to work 1. So we've just made 1 double crochet, and then just continue on as normal like you have been by working 2 double crochets into the center of each V all the way across the row. When you reach the end, go ahead and do the same thing. Turn your work, chain 3, but this time work 2 double crochet into the first spot like normal. So we're only going to be decreasing on this end over here, and then work your way back. And once you've worked your way back to our singular double crochet, I will show you what to do from here. So go ahead and work 2 double crochet into the last full V. And then we have our singular double crochet here, and then our chain 3. So you're just going to skip right over that singular double crochet and just work your final double crochet into the top of the chain 3. So we had our singular double crochet, we worked down like normal, worked back like normal, and then you just skip over that single double crochet and then work it into the chain 3, and then chain 3 to start off the row. And then we're just going to be doing the same exact thing. Work a singular double crochet into the first V space, and then your regular stitches across and back, and just repeat this same process for as many rows as it calls for your size. So For my size, I am going to do rows 51 through 60 of repeating those previous 2 rows. So each row that you do, you'll be decreasing by 1 stitch, and now I am all the way up to row 61. So I did 10 rows of the decreasing, and now I'm at row 61, and we are back to just repeating row 2. So no more decreasing at this point. Just work your 2 double crochet into each V all the way across until you have completed the amount of rows for your size. For the size small, it is a total of 70 rows, just like the back panel. And then once you are done with that, we have to repeat the same thing on the opposite panel. So when you're tying off your work, make sure you leave a tail long enough for sewing this final row that you did to the back panel. So just pull out a nice length so that you don't run out and you don't have to add in more yarn, and then go ahead and just cut your yarn. And then at this point, you need to go back and repeat rows 1 through 48 of the first front panel. So it's going to start off the same way as this panel, and then go ahead and repeat the rows, but stop right before you get to the decrease area because it's going to be slightly different on this second panel. So here I am here all caught up. I've done rows 1 through 48 of the first panel, and now I'm on row 49. So it's going to be the same thing, just opposite, since this is the opposite panel. So go ahead and chain 3. And then you're going to start off the row exactly the same, work 2 double crochet into the first space of the V and all the way across until you reach that final V, and that is where we will be doing our decreasing. So once you get to the end of the row, this is where we're going to do the singular double crochet. So we're just putting in that lone double crochet into that last V space, and then just double crochet into the top of the chain 3 to finish off your row. All right, and then for row 50, start off like normal by chaining 3. So go ahead and turn your work and chain 3. And then to start off this next row, you're just going to skip over that double crochet that we just made. So that lone double crochet that's not a V, you're just going to skip directly over it and work your first 2 double crochet into the very first V space of the row. And then these 2 rows are what you're going to be repeating for the rest of the decreases. So just work your V's across this row like normal. And then for rows 51 through 60, just repeat these 2 rows that we're doing right now to continue doing our decreases. And then after that, just go back to your regular repeat of row 2, just like on the first front panel for rows 61 through 70, to straighten out and just finish off that row. So no more decreasing for those ones. And then I will meet you back here when I am done. So now you should have both front panels finished, and your decreases have been made on the opposite side for these, and that you have cut your yarn long enough to sew these 2 panels to your back panel. So once you have that done, we're just going to be seaming at the shoulders. So you want to place your panels so that the right sides of the front panel are facing down. So the right sides of the panel is our row 1. So when you're looking at row 1, the correct way, that is your right side. And just place it on top of the back panel. So you want to lay the back panel out in front of you, right side facing up. So you can see that I am looking at the right side of my work. So I'm going to lay it facing up and then lay the front panels down on top of it, right sides facing down. So that this way they are both facing the right direction, and our seams will be on the inside of our cardigan. And so now we're just going to be taking these tails of yarn from the front panels and sewing them to the last row of the back panel. So for this part, you can do whatever way you prefer for sewing your garments together. A lot of people like to use a sewing needle and mattress stitch across. I prefer to use my hook and just slip stitch across. I just find it quicker and easier for me to do. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So once your panels are facing right sides together, you're going to be using your hook to join it. So you want to take your hook and insert it into the very first stitch of that row. So into the top of the chain 3 is where you're going to be putting your hook. And then you're just going to be slip stitching to join. So put it in on one side and then find that very first stitch of the other panel and put it through that one as well so that it's lined up, and then just yarn over and pull through to begin our slip stitching, and then put your hook into the very next stitch and then again into the very next stitch of the other panel, and then just yarn over and pull through both panels and pull through the loop on your hook. So we're just slip stitching to join, and we're just going to do this all the way across. So again, insert your hook into the third stitch of both panels. Make sure you're lined up evenly as you go. Yarn over and just pull through the panels and the loop on your hook. And just continue doing this all the way across until you have worked it through all of the stitches of the front panel. Okay, and then once you've worked your way across, just make sure that you don't forget to slip stitch that chain 3 of the panel. So insert it into the next stitch and then insert your hook into the final chain 3 of the panel, and then yarn over, pull through, and then if you can just yarn over and pull through a final time to tie off, and you can cut off any of the extra yarn that you had if your tail was too long. Just make sure you leave enough to weave in your ends. And then we're going to be doing the exact same thing with the other front panel. So you can go ahead and grab your second front panel. And again, make sure you place it right sides facing so that our seams are both on the same side of the work. And now you can see that our other front panel, you have the ending tail on the inside since it's opposites. So you'll want to count in the exact number of stitches that you have on your final row of your front panel and line it up with your back panel. So it just depends on what size you made for your stitch count. So for the size small, I had 26 stitches on that final row of the front panel, so I count in 26 stitches on the back panel to make sure that everything is lined up when I slip stitch to join, so that I am not skipping any stitches or bunching my work up or anything like that. So just go ahead and make sure that you are aware of that and that you count in the correct number. And then do the same thing as before. Insert your hook into the stitches. Make sure it's in the very last stitch of that front panel. And then just yarn over and pull through, slip stitching to join, and do this all the way across until you have slip stitched through each of the stitches on your front panel. Okay, and then at this point we have both of the front panels sewn to the back panel, and now we are going to be doing the same thing to the sides of our cardigan, leaving some space open at the top here though for our armhole openings, and then as well as leaving some space at the bottom for our little slit, which is totally optional if you did not want the slit in your cardigan, but I will be leaving one in mine. So to measure out our armhole openings for our sleeves, you want to place your cardigan out in front of you. Make sure the right sides are still facing. Make sure your panels are all nice and smooth and that nothing is bunched up. You can double check this by counting the rows and making sure that everything is lined up on both sides so that everything is nice and even when we join in our yarn for the seaming. And you will need a measuring tape for this part to make sure your armhole openings are the correct size. So lay your work out in front of you, smooth everything down, and then grab your measuring tape and your stitch marker. So for the size small, I'm going to be measuring out a total of 7 inches that I'm leaving open. So you want to measure from the very top shoulder seam down the side of the cardigan. So right here at the 7-inch mark is where I'm going to put my stitch marker. And again, when you place your stitch marker, just make sure that you are putting it through the same row on both sides so that you can get a nice even seam. And if you want, you can also measure out the slit opening that you're going to leave at the bottom and place a stitch marker. I measured approximately 8 to 9 inches for mine. I did not place a stitch marker here because I just went back and checked as I went along and kind of eyeballed what I want before tying off, but you can totally measure it out just like this and then place a stitch marker. So I left 9 inches undone at the bottom. And now we just have to join the space in between. So you can do the same thing that you did up at the shoulders by joining. You can either use a needle and just stitch across all the way down until you hit where you want to leave it open for your slit, or you can use your hook and slip stitch to join, which is what I am doing here. So in the same spot that you put your stitch marker is where you're going to join in your yarn. So right where I place that is where I'm going to be putting my hook and inserting it, slip stitching to join. And I'm just double checking here to make sure my rows are all nicely even and lined up. So I just did a quick count on both sides just to make sure. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put my hook into the sides of the panels. So when you're slip stitching down the sides of the cardigan, it's a little bit different than how you did it at the shoulder seams, because you're not actually inserting it into an actual stitch. So it might be a little bit more difficult if you're new to this and to get the hang of it, but it is really simple once you get going. So just slip stitch to join, and you want to make sure that you're kind of putting it into the sides of the double crochet stitches of the rows and into the sides of the chain threes, and then just yarn over and pull through both panels and pull through the loop on your hook, slip stitching to join. And again, if you're using a needle, you can just stitch all the way down, and then we are going to be repeating this process on the opposite side of the cardigan as well. So once you've done this side, you need to go back and measure out the same inches for your armhole opening as well as the same amount for your slit, and then just repeat the same exact process on the other side so that the cardigan is fully seamed up. And once you're done with that, I will meet you back here to show you guys how to add on the rows for the sleeves. Okay, so now we are ready to add the sleeves to our cardigan. So you can see here I have my cardigan right side out now so that the seams are on the inside of the cardigan. And we're just going to work a few rounds of single crochet stitches around the opening of our armhole. So go ahead and create a slip knot and then just insert your hook. And we are going to be slip stitching to join to the opening of the armhole. I like to do it just to the left of the seam here at the underarm area. So just slip stitching to join, and then go ahead and chain one to start off this round, and then work a single crochet into that same spot. So for this part here, for this first round, the stitch count is not crucial. So there is no stitch count for it. You're just going to make sure that you are working your stitches evenly around the opening of the armhole. And I worked 2 single crochet per row. So again, we aren't working into actual stitches. We're just working them into the ends of the rows of the front and back panel. So I work 2 single crochet per row, and you can see I'm just working them around the actual double crochets and around the chain threes of the rows, not into like the sides of the stitches, just completely around them. You can do it however which way you want, whatever you think looks best to you. And you're just going to do this all the way around the opening. And then again, if you're off by 1 or 2 and you don't get exactly 2 stitches per row, that's completely fine. It's not going to mess with the pattern at all. So now I've worked my way around and I'm back here, back at the beginning, and all you're going to do is slip stitch to join to the very first single crochet that you made. And then we're just going to repeat that again. So chain 1. And then now you're just going to be working 1 single crochet per stitch all the way around for round 2. So just go ahead and continue working 1 single crochet in each stitch. And then when you get back around to the beginning, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to be slip stitching to join in that very first single crochet made. So just yarn over, pull through, chain 1, and then repeat that same thing. I'm going to do it for a total of 4 rounds. So this is the 3rd round here. Just work 1 single crochet in each stitch around, slip stitch to join when you get back to the beginning, and then work your 4th and final round. If you want to add more rounds to your sleeves, that's completely fine. You can easily customize them, and then just make sure that you do it on the opposite side as well and that you've done the same amount of stitches on both sides. And now all we have left to do is add the trim and the little tie in the center of our cardigan. So you're going to have your cardigan right side out still, and we're going to be joining our yarn to the bottom corner of the front panel. So it's the left front panel when laying out in front of you, but the right front panel when being worn. And we're just going to insert our hook into the very bottom corner of this front panel and slip stitch to join. Then you can just start off by chaining 1, and then this is going to be really similar to the first round of our sleeves. We're just going to be working single crochet stitches up the side of the panel. So again, the stitch count is not crucial for this part. It's totally okay if you have to add an extra stitch here or there. Maybe you have 1 or 2 stitches less than normal, but I work 2 single crochet stitches per row of the front panel. So just go ahead and do that up the side, and then you'll want to stop right when you hit that first decrease row that you did on the front panels, and I will show you what to do from there. So go ahead and work your way up until you hit that first decrease section, and then we will add in the little ties before continuing on. Okay, so now I've worked my way up, and I'm right about in between rows 48 and 49, right where we started doing our decreases. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect where you're doing this, but you're going to stop with the single crochets. Now we're going to make our little tie. So you want to go ahead and chain 31. So just yarn over and pull through a total of 31 times for your chain length. And then we're going to be working our way back down the chain to create the little tie. Okay, once you have a total of 31 chains, you're going to be inserting your hook into the back bump of the chain that is second from the hook, and then just slip stitch into it. So yarn over and pull through, and you're going to do this in each chain all the way across. Insert your hook into the back bump of the chain, yarn over, pull through the chain and pull through the loop on your hook. And you're just going to slip stitch and do this all the way until we reach the front panel again. So a total of 30 slip stitches. All right, and then once you've slip stitched your way back down, you're just going to join back into the panel by working a single crochet into the end of the next row, and then continue as normal, working 2 single crochet stitches into the end of each row. Do this up the rest of the first front panel, and then when you reach the back neckline, work 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way across the back neckline. And then when you reach that second front panel, continue by working 2 single crochet stitches into the ends of each of the rows. And then when you get to the same spot on that other side here, so the exact same row but just on the other panel, you're going to do the same thing, chain 31, slip stitch into the second chain from the hook and each chain across, and then finish off by working 2 single crochet stitches into the ends of each of the rows all the way down that second front panel until you reach the very bottom corner. All right, and then once you hit that bottom corner, you could keep going if you wanted to and add trim to the bottom. I did not think it needed it. I thought it looked really clean already. So I am just going to go ahead and tie off here. So yarn over and pull through, cut my yarn, and then all you have left to do here is weave in any remaining ends that you have. So if you need help with that, there's lots of tutorials out there on how to weave in your ends, but just make sure you weave them in on the inside to kind of hide those ends a little bit more. And then that is it for this pattern. You can tie the cute little tie at the front and then just finish weaving and cutting your ends, and that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you liked this pattern. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I will catch you guys in the next tutorial.